What happens when a homeless man boldly asks Elon Musk for just $1? The answer will truly leave you speechless. The afternoon sun cast its relentless heat over the bustling streets of Austin, Texas. Pedestrians hurried through streams of traffic and honking cars. Amid the chaos, Carl sat quietly at the edge of the sidewalk. His tattered jacket barely held together against the cool breeze, and his worn-out boots told the story of a better past. As usual, Carl sat there with a small cardboard sign propped against his knees. The shaky black letters read, "Hungry. Anything helps." His life hadn't always been this way. Just a few years ago, he had a steady job working at a small manufacturing plant. But then came the layoffs, followed by the mounting medical bills, and eventually the eviction notice. With no family to turn to, Carl had adjusted to living one day at a time. His world had shrunk to these few blocks where strangers avoided his gaze, their hurried steps a silent rejection. But today was unlike any other. While watching the usual line of cars waiting at the traffic light, Carl's eyes caught sight of something extraordinary, a sleek Tesla. Its polished silver exterior gleamed under the bright sun. At first, he thought nothing of it. Luxury cars were a common sight in this part of town, often driven by people who barely noticed his presence. But something about this particular car made him pause. As the driver's window slowly rolled down, Carl's heart began to race. He squinted, leaning forward slightly. Could it really be? No, it couldn't. Was that Elon Musk? Carl blinked a few times, convinced his eyes were playing tricks on him. But there was no mistaking it. The unmistakable face of the tech billionaire was right there, staring back at him. For a brief moment, the frantic pace of the day seemed to stop. His throat went dry, but a surge of desperation and courage bubbled up from within. It pushed him to do something he'd never have dreamed of. Rising to his feet, Carl shuffled toward the car. Every step felt heavier than the last as doubts filled his mind. What am I doing? Asking a billionaire for money? Finally, he reached the car. With trembling fingers, he knocked gently on the window. His voice quivered as he asked, "Can you spare me $1?" For a moment, silence stretched between them. Carl braced himself, expecting the same indifference he had grown used to, a dismissive glance or no response at all. Carl braced himself, expecting rejection, but Musk didn't look away. Instead, his eyes narrowed, as if trying to decipher the man standing before him. Then, to Carl's utter amazement, Musk opened the car door and stepped out onto the street. "What did you say?" Musk asked, his tone neither amused nor condescending, just curious. Carl froze in place. This wasn't the reaction he had prepared for. For the first time in years, he felt both vulnerable and acknowledged. There was no turning back now. Little did Carl know, this single question, this simple request for $1, would lead to a life-changing moment. Carl swallowed hard, his thoughts scrambling. He hadn't planned this far ahead. Here he was, face to face with one of the wealthiest men in the world, yet Musk's expression held no arrogance, just genuine curiosity. Carl stammered, his voice unsteady. "I just asked if you could spare $1. His cheeks flushed with embarrassment as the words left his mouth. $1? What kind of question was that to ask a billionaire? But it was too late to take it back. Musk tilted his head slightly, as if weighing the question in his mind. $1, he repeated, almost testing the words. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a sleek wallet. But instead of handing over the money, he paused, his eyes flicking to the cardboard sign tucked under Carl's arm. "What's your story?" Musk asked calmly, his tone probing but not harsh. "Why are you out here?" Carl hesitated. Most people didn't care about his story. They either tossed loose change his way without a second thought or ignored him altogether. But there was something about the way Musk asked that made Carl feel seen. Vulnerable, yes, but also acknowledged in a way he hadn't been in years. "I lost my job a while back," Carl began hesitantly, his words uneven. "Then things just spiraled. Bills piled up, and I couldn't keep up. I've been out here ever since." Musk nodded slowly, his gaze never wavering. His eyes drifted to Carl's worn jacket, its frayed edges barely holding together. For a fleeting moment, Carl thought he saw something flicker in Musk's expression. Was it empathy? He couldn't be sure. "You asked for $1, Musk said finally, his tone shifting slightly. "Why only $1? Why not ask for more?" The question caught Carl off guard. He blinked, unsure how to respond. "I don't know," he admitted after a moment. "I guess it's easier to ask for something small. People are more likely to say yes." Musk's lips curved into a faint smile, thoughtful rather than mocking. "Interesting," he murmured, almost to himself. Most people would ask for as much as they could get. Carl couldn't tell if Musk was intrigued or testing him, but before he could say anything, Musk took a step closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "Do you think $1 would really change anything for you?" The question hit Carl like a punch to the gut. Of course, $1 wouldn't change his life, but it could buy him a meal, just a moment's relief from the relentless hunger that gnawed at him daily. "I guess not," Carl admitted softly. "But it's something." Musk nodded again, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. Carl stared at the bill, his thoughts racing. This wasn't just $1. This was a lifeline. I don't know what to say," Carl stammered, his voice trembling with emotion. But Musk wasn't finished. Placing a hand lightly on Carl's shoulder, he leaned in slightly. "I want to ask you something," Musk said, his voice steady. "If you could do anything to change your situation, anything at all, what would it be?" Carl's fingers trembled as he clutched the $100 bill. Musk's question hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. "What would I do to change my situation?" Carl repeated quietly, almost to himself. He glanced up at Musk, who was watching him intently, waiting. This wasn't a casual question. It demanded an honest answer. Carl exhaled deeply, his mind racing. I'd get a clean start," he said finally, his voice low but resolute. "Find a place to stay, clean myself up, maybe even get a job again. I just need a chance. A real one." Musk's expression didn't change, but his eyes seemed to brighten slightly. "A clean start," he echoed, nodding thoughtfully. "That's a good answer." Carl felt a pang of uncertainty. Was it really a good answer, or just the only one he could come up with? But before doubt could overwhelm him, Musk leaned casually against the car, folding his arms as if settling in for a deeper conversation. "What's stopping you?" Musk asked. Carl hesitated. The answer was painfully clear, but saying it out loud felt like admitting defeat. "Money," he said simply. "And the system. It's hard to climb out once you've fallen this far." Musk tilted his head, appearing to weigh Carl's words carefully. "Not wrong," Musk said after a brief pause. "The system isn't designed to help people like you. It's built to keep things running the way they are." He stopped, his gaze sharpening. "But if you had the resources, just enough to get back on your feet, do you think you could make it work?" Carl's throat tightened at the question. It was as daunting as it was hopeful. "I think so," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I mean, I'd try. I wouldn't waste the chance." Musk studied him carefully before a faint smile crossed his face. "That's what I like to hear." Carl didn't know what to make of Musk's cryptic response, but before he could ask, Musk continued. "You know, Carl, most people think success is about big ideas or luck. And yeah, those things help. But more often, it comes down to persistence, getting back up every time life knocks you down. Sounds like you've had plenty of practice at that." Carl chuckled softly, though the sound carried a bitter edge. "Yeah, you could say that." Musk's smile widened slightly. "Good, because persistence is the one thing money can't buy. And it's the one thing that matters most." The words struck Carl harder than he expected. He had spent so long feeling invisible, defined by his failures, that he'd forgotten the strength it took just to survive each day. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of something unfamiliar: pride. Musk straightened, his tone shifting slightly. "Here's the deal," he said, his voice firm but kind. "I'm going to give you more than money. I'm going to give you a chance. A real one. But it's up to you to take it." Carl's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Reaching into his pocket, Musk pulled out a sleek business card and handed it to Carl. The card's minimalist design bore no logo, no flashy branding, just a phone number and the name Elon Musk. "Call this number tomorrow," Musk said. "Tell them I sent you. They'll know what to do." Carl's hands trembled as he stared at the card. I don't understand. What are you offering me?" "A job," Musk replied simply. "A place to start. Whether you take it or not, that's up to you." A lump formed in Carl's throat, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The possibilities felt both thrilling and terrifying. Musk stepped back toward his car, but before getting in, he turned to Carl one last time. "Don't waste this, Carl. Opportunities like this don't come around often." With that, Musk drove away, leaving Carl standing on the sidewalk, clutching the card that had the potential to change everything. That night, Carl sat under the dim glow of a street lamp, staring at the card in his hands. The name and number seemed surreal, as if they might vanish if he looked away. Doubts flooded his mind. Was this some kind of test? A cruel joke? People like Elon Musk didn't just hand out opportunities, especially not to people like him. But as the quiet night deepened, a new thought began to take root, a rare flicker of hope. What if this was real? What if Musk saw something in me worth believing in? Carl clenched the card tightly, his resolve solidifying. He had nothing to lose. The next morning, Carl found a public phone booth outside a gas station. The receiver was sticky, and the keypad was worn, but it still worked. His heart raced as he dialed the number on the card, each beep amplifying his nerves. After a few rings, a calm, professional voice answered. "Elon Musk's office. How can I help you?" Carl froze, his tongue heavy. This was real. It was actually happening. Forcing himself to speak, he managed. My name's Carl. Mr. Musk gave me this number." He said you'd know what to do." The woman on the other end didn't hesitate. "Of course, Carl. Mr. Musk mentioned you. Can you come to our downtown office today at noon?" Carl blinked, stunned. Yeah, I can." "Great. We'll see you then," the woman said before the line went dead. Carl stared at the phone in his hand, his mind racing with questions. What awaited him at that office? He had no idea, but he wasn't about to let this opportunity slip through his fingers. At exactly noon, Carl stepped into a gleaming office building downtown. His tattered clothes made him feel out of place, yet no one seemed to notice as he entered the elevator. When the doors opened on the 15th floor, A young woman greeted him with a warm smile. "Mr. Carl?" she asked. He nodded, his throat too dry to respond. "Right this way," she said, leading him down a pristine hallway. At the end of the hall, Carl found himself in a conference room with large windows offering a sweeping view of the city. Sitting at the head of the table was Elon Musk himself. "Carl," Musk said, rising to greet him, "I'm glad you came." Carl sat down slowly, still grappling with the surreal nature of the moment. Was this really happening? Musk wasted no time. "Here's the deal," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Inside is a job offer. It's an entry-level position at one of my facilities. Nothing flashy, but it's a start. You'll have a steady paycheck and access to resources to help you get back on your feet." Carl's hands trembled as he opened the folder. Inside was everything Musk had described, a lifeline in black and white. He could hardly believe it. "Why are you doing this?" Carl asked, his voice heavy with emotion. "Why me?" Musk leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Because I've been where you are, Carl. Not on the streets, but at rock bottom, doubting myself, unsure of the future. Someone gave me a chance once, and it changed my life. Now, I'm giving you the same." Carl felt tears sting his eyes. He wasn't used to kindness like this, genuine compassion. He wanted to express his gratitude, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he nodded, clutching the folder as if it were his most prized possession. "Don't let me down," Musk said, his tone firm yet encouraging. When Carl left that office, he carried something he hadn't felt in years: hope. This wasn't just a job, it was a second chance. And he was determined to make the most of it. The very next day, Carl reported to the address listed in the folder, a massive Tesla manufacturing facility on the outskirts of Dallas. The hum of machinery filled the air, and for the first time in years, Carl felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. He was issued a uniform, introduced to his team, and trained for his role in assembling electric vehicle components. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and Carl threw himself into it with everything he had. The first few weeks were tough. His body ached from standing for hours, and his hands struggled to adapt to the precision required. But Carl persisted. Each paycheck felt like a small victory, a step closer to reclaiming his life. He rented a modest room in a shared house and saved every penny he could. Slowly but surely, Carl began rebuilding his world. Word of his story spread quickly around the facility. At first, his co-workers were skeptical of the man who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. But as they witnessed his determination and work ethic, their attitudes softened. Carl became a source of inspiration, a living testament to the power of second chances. Carl's transformation didn't stop there. One evening, as he sat in his small, modest room counting his savings, a thought began to gnaw at him. He couldn't shake the memories of those still trapped in the place he had once been. He knew too well what it felt like to be invisible, to believe no one cared. He realized he couldn't just move forward and forget about them. Using a portion of his savings, Carl began visiting shelters around the city. He brought hot meals, supplies, and a listening ear. He'd sit with the people there, hearing their stories, sharing his own, and reminding them that change was possible. It wasn't much, but it was a start. With every visit, Carl felt his purpose becoming clearer. Months later, Carl received a call that would change his life yet again. It was Elon Musk. "I've been keeping an eye on you," Musk said, his voice warm. "You've done well, Carl. Better than I expected." Carl smiled, his chest swelling with pride. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you." There was a pause before Musk continued. "I hear you've been helping others. That's impressive. It shows real character. I want to offer you something more." Carl's heart raced. "More?" "Yes," Musk replied. "I want you to lead an initiative I've been considering. It's focused on workforce development for people who've hit rock bottom. You'd help identify candidates, mentor them, and guide them towards sustainable careers. You'd be the bridge for others, just as I was for you." The offer floored Carl. He thought back to the day he'd approached Musk's car, desperate for a single dollar. The man he had been then and the man he was now felt like two entirely different people. Yet, this opportunity was more than a job. It was a chance to turn his pain into purpose, to give others the hope and support he had once received. "I'd be honored," Carl said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within him. That day marked the beginning of the next chapter of Carl's life. He was no longer just a man surviving. He was a man thriving, creating a ripple effect of change. Carl's story became a beacon of hope, proving that one act of kindness, one chance, could transform a life and inspire countless others. Carl's efforts ignited a transformation, not just in himself but in entire communities. Years passed, and his impact only grew. The initiative Musk had entrusted him with, now called Second Spark, became a nationwide program. It connected thousands of people, those overlooked and forgotten by society, with resources, training, and jobs to rebuild their lives. Carl traveled across the country, meeting individuals who reminded him of his former self. He shared his story, showing that hope wasn't just an abstract idea but a lifeline. His journey proved that even in the darkest moments, there's always potential for light. One day, during an event celebrating Second Spark's 5th anniversary, Carl stood on a stage addressing a crowd of program graduates. The room was filled with people from all walks of life, former inmates, single parents, veterans, and countless others who had been given a second chance. Carl's voice was steady but laced with emotion as he began. "5 years ago, I asked a man for $1, he said, pausing to let the words sink in. But what he gave me wasn't money. It was an opportunity. And with that opportunity, I realized something. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how invisible you feel, there's always a way back. You just need someone to believe in you." The crowd erupted in applause, but Carl wasn't done. "What I've learned is that kindness, when paired with action, can change everything. We all have the power to lift someone up. It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it's as simple as asking a question or giving someone a chance." As Carl stepped down from the stage, he caught sight of Elon Musk in the audience, his trademark grin lighting up his face. Musk approached him, shaking his hand firmly. "You did good, Carl," Musk said, his voice filled with pride. Carl smiled, his eyes glistening with emotion. "We did good." As the event wrapped up, Carl stood quietly, taking it all in. The journey from a homeless man with nothing to his name to the leader of a nationwide movement was unimaginable. It was proof that life's biggest transformations often begin with the smallest moments. Carl's story became a testament to the power of resilience, kindness, and opportunity. It showed that one act of courage, asking for help, could create a ripple of change that touched countless lives. If this story moved you, remember that we all have the ability to make a difference. Whether through a simple gesture, a word of encouragement, or taking a step toward your own second chance, you can spark hope in someone else. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of hope, kindness, and connection.